Hello and welcome to class. It's week 7 for DBA760. This week we're going to be moving on to the testing and empirical validation of strategic management theory, something that I'm sure everybody's been looking forward to. And of course, validation is an important aspect to any kind of theory building and academic research, because how do you know if something somebody says that sounds good is really true or not? And so we're going to be looking at some various methods that have been used to try to test the Porter theories and the Barnard theories to see whether actually they work or they don't work. So we have some readings, and you'll notice these are coming from a variety of different sources, different universities, different authors. And the basic idea is they've used somebody else's theory and sort of said, well, now we want to see if it works or not in this particular setting, which might then lead to further research that says, well, maybe Porter's model works in this type of an environment, but maybe it doesn't work so well in this type of an environment. Maybe we have to look at somebody else's approach. Okay? So I think you'll find the reading somewhat interesting, and again, a good introduction to the idea of when you're doing your doctoral dissertation, you'll have to validate whatever you come up with is your basic idea. And I'll be talking more about this a little bit later. Okay, so we have readings. We have our normal discussion post, first post in by Tuesday, 4 separate posts on different days. And of course, we'll just be talking about what you're reading in the articles. But we also have the final kind of big paper for the class. This is, again, not a huge 30-page long paper, but it is comprehensive in terms of building upon a lot of various material that we've been reading over the past 3 weeks. So it combines a lot of the new theories that were presented in week 5 and week 6, and then it presents the testing approach that is going to be presented in week 7. So the idea here is to learn to synthesize the material. I don't want to see, reviews of 30 different articles. I want to see a synthesis of the ideas in the articles. And to do that, you need to develop the point you're trying to make. What's your thesis statement? Now, this is all kind of leading up to, again, the idea that everything you do in your classes should be related to what you will be doing on your dissertation. And I've mentioned in the past several classes that the standard dissertation that you'll be working on is a 5-chapter model. It has an introduction, it has a literature review with at least 2 streams of literature, it has a methodology section, it has a results section, and it has a summary of findings section, chapter 5. So this is what you're going to end up with, but the question is, so how do you get there? But before we get started, I'd like to first talk a little bit about what a dissertation is not. Dissertation is not a report on a particular subject. Even though it might be important, even though it might be groundbreaking, it's not a dissertation. A dissertation is something else. It's not an op-ed piece. It doesn't include somebody's opinion about the future of solar energy, or how regulation is ruining the economy, or how the Olympics in Brazil are going to be a disaster. Okay? Again, there's plenty of information on the internet, in newspapers, in magazines that are basically opinion pieces, sometimes by a qualified expert. However, they're just that person's opinion, and they're not subject to the kind of rigor and investigation and scientific methods that a dissertation is. Also, a dissertation is not a personal biography about how you built your business or how you think people should be led most effectively. Okay? And lastly, a dissertation is not simply retesting an established theory. Okay? So, for example, in leadership, transformational leadership is a well-established theory, has been tested and used many times, and it's been correlated quite closely with job satisfaction across the board. So to plan to do a dissertation to measure job satisfaction related to transformational leadership, again, doesn't really say anything. We would expect it to be correlated. It's always been correlated before. So just the fact that you're going to do it with elementary school teachers in Nebraska doesn't mean that you're adding anything to the field. Okay? So those are basically some things that I've seen presented as dissertation topics that I discourage people from trying to follow. So this should be familiar, but I'll just run through it again quickly. The dissertation process starts out with two streams of literature that become synthesized into a gap and a bridge. That's the green part of the diagram. At that point, what we call the prospectus stage is complete, and when approved, a committee is assigned. Then we move into the proposal stage, which are the purple blocks, and here the methodology is developed for what the research questions are going to be, what the hypotheses are going to be, how the data is going to be collected and potentially analyzed. At the end of the proposal stage, there's a proposal defense. Once the defense is approved, then we go to the actual data collection phase, but first we make a stop at the IRB to get approval there. Then we move on to the orange blocks and begin collecting data, analyzing it, reporting the statistical findings and whether the hypotheses are supported or rejected, and then finally summarize the results and conclusions. At which point a final defense is scheduled, and if completed successfully, you have your dissertation. So that's the process. Today I'm going to be talking about the second stream of literature, how the stream is synthesized with the first stream, and how a gap is defined and a bridge is developed. Some students ask, why do you need two streams of literature? What's wrong with one stream? Well, at least two streams are necessary because you're going to draw them together and synthesize them into something new. The reason that we want to use existing theory and draw from the literature is because that's already been proven to be accepted as valid, to the extent things can be accepted as valid. So you're not trying to invent something totally new. It's like, use the analogy of a chef, master chef in the kitchen. The chef doesn't have to go out and grow wheat and doesn't have to slaughter cows and raise chickens. Okay, he's got ingredients in his pantry. He knows what he has. His job is to come up using the existing ingredients and come up with a new dish. A superb new dish that everybody will acclaim as being better than anything that's existed before out of those particular ingredients. That's what combining these streams of literature into a gap and a dissertation, which is essentially the finished dish. The reason it's important is because a synthesis that combines two existing streams will provide value to both of those streams. You'll be adding to the existing literature. Consequently, people will be able to review the dissertation work and potential articles that are generated out of the dissertation as pushing the field forward, adding another eighth of an inch to our understanding of how the theories and the data within that field operate. So essentially, we'll be taking one stream, combining it with a second stream, synthesizing them together, and coming up with a new idea. So, how about an example? I'll be showing several examples. This is the first one. This comes from our general management class, our DBA710, and an article that's used in that class called From General Systems Theory to Total Quality Management. The abstract demonstrates or explains the two bodies of literature that are going to be worked with. You're going to work with total quality management theory and general systems theory. They are going to be contrasted side by side, and the author is going to attempt to link these two together. How do they do that? Well, you start with your foundational literature from general systems theory and organizational studies. Okay, that's where you start, and then you develop that through your stream of literature to get more modern and more modern with what the current thinking is in general systems theory and also living systems theory is. And then you have your second stream of literature, which is the TQM literature. And here it comes from Deming's work and Dean and Bowen's work, and that forms the basis of the second stream of literature. So these are going to be running kind of in parallel, developed, refined down, integrated with all the literature that's been provided that's relevant to this particular topic. So once the foundational literature is established and the streams have been developed, now it's time to define the gap. And here they say the TQM system model evolved from real-world model. TQM contributes to the general systems theory in a way that bridges the gap between theoretical framework and a real-world application. So here they have in this table shown the comparison between general systems theory and total quality management theory, and they've broken them down by the basic criterion that they're going to be comparing them. Here on the left side, basic assumptions, organizational goals, organizational purposes, systems model, management functions, and then on a side-by-side comparison, they've described how general systems theory deals with that criterion and how total quality management deals with that. So here they've defined the gap between the two, but now they have to define the bridge. So bridging the gap requires a synthesis of the two theories. Systems approach of problem solving is not prescriptive. Okay, it's descriptive. It's a set of principles and practices which help researchers to analyze solving problems. TQM approach is also a set of principles and practices. However, it does have some prescriptive intervention. This prescriptive nature is why TQM is easier to be accepted by managers. It tells them what to do. But this section isn't intended to identify all the prescriptions. The emphasis is on the comparison between TQM and systems principles. So to do that, they provide this linking table where along the left side you have the basic features of general systems theory, cybernetic and feedback, process and change, learning, and along the top you have the categories of TQM, which are customer focus, continuous improvement, and teamwork. And within the table, within the little grid work here, we have how systems theory and TQM match up with regard to specific implementation, so that cybernetics and feedback are related to customer focus through the linkage between customers and suppliers, and also through the focus on information collection. Continuous improvement is linked together by SPC and 7 management tools from the TQM model. Teamwork, again, is linked with process and change by different types of teamwork as a change of process over time. So what they've done is taken the two theories, broken them down into the specific things they want to work with that show how these two are ultimately related. They have some underlying DNA that connects them together. And so they're saying that we can look at TQM and we can look at general systems theory kind of through the same lens, and that adds to both theories. So let's see how that looks from a more schematic or graphical perspective. So we start with TQM, total quality management theory, and general systems theory, our foundational literature. From there we move into developing the literature stream. So from TQM we're going to move into a narrower focus on subsystems, on production systems, information systems, human resource systems, and in general systems theory we're going to be just focusing in on higher order human systems. Remember, general systems theory covers everything: solar systems, ecosystems, everything, computer systems. So anything that can be labeled a system fits into general systems theory. But we're only working with organizations. Continuing to develop the literature stream and focus even further, now we're going to be looking at the main criteria from total quality management that we're interested in looking at. So we're going to be focusing on teamwork, customer focus, continuous improvement. On the general systems theory side, we're going to be looking at cybernetics, feedback, learning, process, and change. Okay, so we've developed our two literature streams. Now we're ready to start synthesizing and building the bridge between these, which was presented on the previous slide as this table, linking the two together. So in summary, what we're doing here is pointing out how the two-stream and gap and bridge method is used in constructing academic research. Not all peer-reviewed journal articles are based on this particular method. However, we are using this particular approach for dissertations because it provides a level of rigor and it contributes to the existing bodies of literature. And it is kind of a proven, accepted method. If you can do this, you've got a valid dissertation. As you're reading the articles, look for those articles which have gaps and bridges. It'll make you more adept and proficient at thinking of your own. And then, as you can see, by using the research articles as examples, that the importance of defining things clearly and having strong supporting literature is absolutely essential to creating your streams of literature and to be able to precisely define what the gap is and then building the bridge. So until next time, Get in touch with me if you have any questions, and goodbye and good luck.